right. Happy Friday, everybody. I see a few people today that are in the audience on our live recording of the Clear channel. Want to welcome everybody to the Clear channel. It's a YouTube channel I started about two and a half years ago now. It's pretty cool to see this thing grow and how many people are gaining information and knowledge and just learning a lot from amazing people. My whole mission is to help change the world one leader at a time by bringing on amazing people in our organization, outside of organization, to share their wealth of knowledge. And man, I'm pumped about today's call with Julie. Good morning, Julie.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Ken.
I'm good. So, hey, let me tell you guys about Julie, and then Julie, if you could share a little bit also. So
Sure.
Julie's background, I got to read it because it's pretty diverse and amazing. So obviously she's an entrepreneur, been an entrepreneur for many years. She's a consultant. She's a mother of three. She's a hypnotherapist as of late. I remember we'll talk a little bit about that if we could, Julie.
The clock.
You're right. And don't hypnotize me, please, today. Not.
Turn you into a chicken. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I know, right? And I'll tell you, she's had an amazing career in entrepreneurship. She's been a successful business owner for 25 plus years, consulting for 20 years. She's a public speaker. She's a best-selling author of The 6 Questions. And, just an amazing friend of mine. We've known each other for many years. So good morning, Julie. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your background? Obviously, that's Julie in her brief bio, but obviously that doesn't encompass how amazing you are.
Well, thank you, Ken. Appreciate you, and thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Edmonds. I grew up in Louisiana and a little farm town area. But my parents were, we had everything we needed and everything. We didn't go on these lavish vacations or anything, but from a very young age, I always wanted to run my own business. I didn't have a lot of influence in that department. My dad was a college professor. My mom, was a computer analyst, but it was just something inside of me. And I don't know why. I remember just being young. We had, I wanted some money and we were driving past this little shop and it said, sell pecans for, I don't know how much per pound. And I was like, we have so many pecan trees in the backyard and I wanted some money to make some brownies for the house. And so, because I love to bake. So I went and picked my little pecans and I brought them in and I sold them. And I don't know, made like what, $10, $15, $20. And my dad brought me over. But I thought that was just like the coolest thing ever. Like, wow, you mean I have control? I think that was probably one of my first experiences in understanding that, like, we lead our life. We don't have to have other people dictate what we do. And, that was, I don't know how old. So years later after I graduated college, by the way, I went to school for finance and math and I wanted to be a stockbroker, but, thank God I didn't do that. I was influenced by this woman that drove this really cool little red convertible Porsche and she was a stockbroker. So I was like, well, I want to be a stockbroker. I want a red convertible Porsche. Little did you know, right? But growing up, and I moved to Florida after I graduated and I waited tables all throughout college. So when I started in the business of sales, commission only sales, I was pumped. Because I remember like waiting tables, the better attitude you had, the more tables you took, the more money you made. And I just like translated, those skills were transferable. So
Love it.
I was excited. Yeah, I know. I was probably one of the only people that was looking for commission. And
can I pause you real quick and ask you, so you mentioned you grew up in a haunted house. It's true? So tell me about it. Like, how was it haunted? That's crazy.
My house was built by my 6th great grandmother, like back in the 1700s, right? And so it just kept passing through, and we ended up getting it, 6 generations later. But during the Civil War, the Yankees came in and took it over as a hospital. And there were so many, like we had diaries in the walls. We had blood stains on the floors. Like it was a historical, house. People would come up to our house and want to take tours and I would show them these doors came off the hinges and they were used as stretchers. I was just repeating what I heard my dad say. We found bullets there were all these bullets that they would give the soldiers when they were amputating the arms and legs. I know this is kind of bloody, but there was no anesthesia at the time. So the bullets had complete bite marks in them. We have a lot of those. It's crazy. And so, yeah, we have our midnight stories and, creaky sounds in the middle of the night. And we had a lot of stories. So,
Oh my goodness. I just had to share that. I know you said that in your bio. I was like, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. So you finished school. You obviously did a lot of serving in college, and then you fall into this sales opportunity. You happen to be looking for something that was performance based because you realized that from serving, the more you did, the more you got paid. How was that experience? Your first, 30, 60, 90 days in sales. How was it for you?
Well, I was terrified. I mean, I was so scared. I hated the word no, because I just personalized it. Like, they hate me, they don't want it, no one likes me. And I remember going up to one of my first doors, and my trainer was behind me. I was like, I didn't want him to hear me pitch. I was like, you go on the other side of the street. And I'm like shaking and talking and pitching. And some lady comes up and buys for me. And I was like, oh, well, that was easy. When you get that first one out of the way, suddenly you gain all this like unbelievable confidence that doesn't last, by the way. But so, that first 90 days, it was extremely exciting, but I was so freaking scared. I was scared. Like, my biggest thing is I'd go in every Monday morning. Like, what if I don't make any money? What if, what if? And it was all this noise in my head. And I hated Monday mornings, not because I was tired and I didn't want to go in. I was motivated and I was excited because I wanted to build my own business, but I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah, it's so common. It's so common. I always talk about how the most important conversation you have is the one you have with yourself, right? And in your mind, you have this reticular activation system where if you start thinking about something so much like the red Porsche, you're going to see the Porsches on the road more often when you're thinking about it because it's just here, right? And it's connecting. And so how did you get through that? Because I think that's really common with people that are young into their career. They unfortunately lean to maybe the negative side of things and that negative mindset. How did you shift it to the opportunity and the positive mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I mean, that's the one thing we learn in hypnotherapy is that the only thing we listen to are the words we say and the pictures we create in our head. And so a big part of therapy and learning and growing is learning to change the words, the quality of your thoughts. Now, who knew this when I was 24, but it would have helped. I think I was just running away from my fear, to be honest with you. I didn't want to be scared. I didn't want to be afraid to manage people. I didn't want to be afraid to just live in this box because I had panic attacks and a lot of anxiety for whatever reason. So, and I really wanted something. I wanted to be in this position where I could run my own business. And I knew that if I worked hard enough, that I could make it happen. So I think my goals and my desires were bigger than the fear. I wasn't going to let the fear stop me. So my advice back then to people was just close your eyes and run. Just close your eyes and run. You'll get somewhere, but don't stop. And that was my, pearls of wisdom when I was 24. And it worked for me for some times.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then, obviously in the opportunity in our industry, right, you learn sales, you start learning how to lead and coach people. How was it early on in that role of responsibility? You got another human that you're supposed to train. How did you feel about that?
Well, here's the thing. And like my advice to leaders, like, don't try to teach something that you don't know. I mean, there were like times where I would read this juicy book or watch it, podcast later, and just try to repeat those words from what other leaders were saying. And it would come out all wrong because I was like trying to repeat something. And I thought I had to be this like incredible person that had all the answers. And when they came to me, I better know them. And if not, then I'm just not good enough. And so I had to go through a revolution of just, a lot of just shedding of the skin. But so, there's that whole saying was like, you learn it, live it, then lead it. So teach what you already know. And so I was trying to teach stuff that I didn't know. And so I was so far from being able to like be confident with what I was saying. And then I finally realized, wait, all I have to do is teach what I learned, teach them how to do an introduction to a sale, teach them how to overcome an objection, teach them how to keep going in the pouring down rain, teach them that no means next. Wait, duh, that's so easy. There's got to be a deeper answer to that. but the answer was so simple that I was looking for something deeper than what it really was. And so I think when I had that kind of aha awakening, I felt more confident with myself.
So I love what you just said there. Learn it, lead it, live it, right?
No, learn it, live it, then lead it. Learn it.
Learn it, live it, then lead it.
Yeah. I mean, we all do that. Try to teach something we don't know. I mean, at least I did. Try to act cool.
Yeah. No, no, it makes total sense. And when you keep things relatively simple like that, you tend to, again, for your own confidence and your own ability, you tend to make people feel great because you feel good about yourself, right? The energy you put out is positive and people respond to that.
1,000%.
Awesome. And so you get a chance to you move up, you move into a role of someone makes an investment in you. How old were you when you started your first business?
25.
So you're 25. Back then, we weren't in, today we in the office we're in, people are watching, like we're working in Costco's and Sam's Clubs and Targets, and we're in this big time retailers. I know I started off doing door to door, business to business. I believe you did as well, right?
Yes.
And so the clients weren't as well known, to say the least, right, as we have them today. So what was it like running your first company? Maybe the brands weren't that big. Were you selling what products were you working with? What services?
We were selling like these little, we called them VIP cards, kind of coupon cards. So it was like buy one, get one frees to like Meineke or Firestone to get an oil change, or Bennigan's when it was still in business, or it was the Lakeland Ice Warriors when I was in Tampa, Florida. It was just this little, Ice Warrior hockey team. But there was no comparison. We didn't have AT&T or Verizon or whatever, back then. I just knew that if I worked hard enough and I put the effort in and I ran away from my fears, what I was thinking, and I had all these great, habits, that I could teach someone else how to do it. But when I opened my first office, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and growing up in Louisiana and Florida, I'd never really been in snow, which, you're in Detroit, you're laughing, but we all have our things. But it's like I just got amnesia. I forgot about everything I knew. And I was so, like, my confidence was gone. I was running, my business in fear, and I never asked for help. So people always ask, what advice would you give back then? Probably ask for help. I thought I had to do it all by myself. And I think it was in the back of my head that if I asked for help, that meant I wasn't good enough. If I asked for help, that means I didn't know how to do it. Reality was I didn't know how to do it, but I was too afraid to ask because I thought someone would judge me or think, less of me. And that was my mentality. So I tried to figure it out on myself, and I failed miserably. And I had a phone call one day, Julie, you can either quit, you can keep doing what you're doing, or come down to Miami and work with some mentors that can help, get you back in line. And I was in so much like agony at that point. Like it was a Wednesday phone call. Saturday I was in Miami.
And that when you get those types of calls, right? We all have coaches and mentors that kind of, if they're great, they kind of have that difficult conversation with us, right? They kind of, in a way, I would say, check us in a positive way to, hey, is everything okay? If not, hey, we need to get you more support. And how did you respond to that? Because sometimes people, it's even more self-defeating, and other people get empowered from it. How did you respond to it?
Well, I had this giant defense mechanism. So for me, I was like, I knew it all, and it's like, you can't tell me what to do. I got it. I know it. Don't tell me. Right, whatever. Until I wasn't right, until I was really wrong. And my face turned red for about 8 months when I started like having that self-awareness that I was like, I don't know what the F I'm talking about over here. And so I think I needed to get slapped in the head quite a few times and just been proven wrong. And it was the greatest experience in my life. I love being proven wrong now because I realize I have so much to learn, and so sometimes we think we know we're right, and it's not always true.
Yeah. Well, good for you that you're humble enough to then, get the support and have that awareness, right? I ran a meeting this week around if there's a superpower that you would want, and people went around the room and said, oh, I want to fly. I want to, teleport. I want to do these things. In my eyes, it's the superpower is if I have complete self-awareness, because if I have complete self-awareness, then I can, then I can help. I know who I am. I know what's happening. And listen, no one has complete self-awareness, but it could be a superpower because it's empowering to have that
That's so
in your
good.
day to day
That's
and
such a good answer.
relationships and things. So thank you. Thank you. So listen, you run a business, you have a massive organization today. You've written a book. Tell me about the book, how it came about. And by the way, weren't you in a magazine at one point?
I was in Cosmopolitan magazine.
Yeah, that's what I thought. What were you in Cosmo for?
Well, so when I was 27, I believe, they chose 15 women, girls across the United States that were doing outstanding in their career, and they featured them as fun, fearless female. So, people say, weren't you on the cover? I was not on the cover, but I was featured in the magazine. But the funny part was, for years, I used to tell people my mom entered me because I entered myself, but I thought it would sounded so egotistical to tell people that I entered myself. And now I'm proud to say, look, I was proud of my achievements and my accomplishments. And yes, I entered myself. I didn't know I was going to win. But I remember going out to lunch and coming back, and I saw on my desk, Amy from Cosmopolitan magazine called you, call her back at this number. I'm like, okay. So I make the phone call and I'm like, hi, can I speak to Amy? This is Julie. Oh, Julie Edmonds. I'm like, that's me. And so, of course, they did the interview and they had to investigate our business to make sure, I was being honest with my stats. And I got featured. It was great. I met Ashley Judd and, we went up to New York. It was great. It was my claim to fame.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. And so you get featured obviously, but then and you went on and wrote a book. So how did the book come about? And obviously a good friend of ours that you're partnered with in that adventure.
For sure. Well, I'm a writer, in my heart. It's something like in another life, I'm this famous writer whose books turn into movies. And but I love to write, and of course I love to journal, which has really kind of saved my life. And but I've always wanted to write a book, and so my friend at the time, her and I decided, like, let's put this together, and we just like got in the zone. And it was an interesting and fun process. And how we finished it, I don't know, but we finished it. But it was a business book, so I was just kind of regurgitating all the stuff that I already knew. It wasn't anything creative. I love to creatively write. And so, but I was proud of myself and proud of her and proud of us that we actually, have this book. I was looking at it the other day because we wrote it, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And you know how your mindset changes and you learn things. I'm reading stuff. I'm like, I probably wouldn't have said it that way, but and it's still good advice. A little more elementary than I like to think about, but it was at least my part.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know, and obviously there's a few peers of ours that have jumped into that world of writing books and doing things like that. So today, obviously you mentioned you're just on a recent trip. I thought that's an awesome story. You visited an office in New York, so you consult a lot of entrepreneurs and their ability to run great businesses. And do you mind sharing that story that you just went to Boston and kind of how that happens? Because I feel like that's my life too.
It's so funny for all the parents out there. And Ken and I were just talking about how it doesn't matter how amazing we are in our work world. Our kids are like, Mom, rolling their eyes at me. So I bring my 10-year-old to one of our Boston offices this past summer. And I ran this really, in my mind, this really juicy leaders meeting. They're asking all these questions and I'm dropping all this wisdom that I've learned over the years from my experience. And my daughter's just watching me the whole time. And when it's over, they leave and I ask her, and I'm thinking, she's 10. I don't know how much she would have absorbed, and I'm sure something she did. But I said, well, what did you get out of that? And I was, thinking she'd say something. Well, Mom, I liked what you said about, well, she goes, Mom, oh my God, the whole time you talk, all you did with your face was, and that's all she got out of it. I'm like, okay, well, high five to you.
Yeah, you're like, hey, all right, that was a good job, good use of time. Thanks for the feedback. Good talk, good talk. It's a good game. See you out there. So speaking of leaders, obviously you have a ton of wisdom in that world of developing entrepreneurs leadership. Any wisdom, anything you'd like to share, things that you're seeing lately that in their coaching that you can make an impact on maybe a leader and that's going to watch this that's like, hey, like I just want to be the next Julie. I want to grow and have a business and an opportunity to, be an entrepreneurship. What's your any tips on leadership and your, for a young leader?
Yeah, sure. So something, I know uh, discipline is huge. And we have to train our brains to do it. And I have this motto, when I talk to groups, I'll say, and I have them call back. It's like, if you don't feel like doing it, what do you do? And if they've heard me talk so many times, they have to yell, do it anyway. And I think that is something that very established, successful people have a lot of discipline. And so when you wake up in the morning, I don't feel like getting up. Well, what are you going to do? Do it anyway. I'm really tired and I don't feel like extra miling. Well, what do you have to do? Your brain, do it anyway. I'm scared. I don't want to public speak. I don't want to train on this thing. Do it anyway. Kind of going back to my elementary advice of close your eyes and run. It's like that. It's just like, do it anyway. Show up, game face, ready to go. Put yourself in gear and do it anyway. Pitch that first door, run, see those businesses, do it anyway, no matter what your other side of your brain's telling you to stop. And I mean, that's like the easiest advice I can give.
Love it. Yeah, because everyone has doubt, right? Everyone has doubt, and more some for some than others. But it's I think to your point, I remember a friend of ours said one time, "It's okay to have doubt, but it's not okay to stop."
Yes. Yes.
So tell me, so what got you into hypnotherapy, right? You've had this super successful business career. You're an incredible mom. What was hypnotherapy? I know a lot of this stuff in the last, I think 3 to 5 years, you've taken this new little challenge on. And I know we've talked and we've had meetings that we've both been in and about how you can make an impact in the mental side of development of young people.
Well, I think hypnotherapy found me. To be honest, like my whole life, I've always been into wanting to learn and grow and understand and understand your mind more. And the subconscious mind has all the answers. And from what I learned now is that everyone's deepest fear is that somewhere along the line, in some kind of category, somewhere is that they're not good enough. And so, and maybe they feel great in one department, but this other, I'm just not good enough. And it stems from so many, who knows, and a lot of it, when you're experiencing an irrational fear, an irrational response, or an overstimulated response to something that it's like, and then we learn it's like, it's not what happens to you, but it's your interpretation of what happens to you. And it starts playing like a broken record in your head. And so a lot of that is just investigating your thoughts. You talked about that a lot, like being aware, investigating the quality of your thoughts, interrupting the pattern of the negative, blocking, self-limiting, thoughts, and installing a new belief. And actually, you can do it pretty rapidly. But a lot of the times we don't even know what those limiting beliefs are, what's stopping us. And it could be lack of control. It could be, but most of it all boils down to, I don't feel good enough. And so when we go in there and tell yourself, like, wait, why do you not feel good enough? Well, because when I was 13 years old, I broke all my mom's pots and, ceramics, and she yelled at me, and I just, etc. You find out all these like crazy things, and it's just like our 8-year-old mind is stopping us a lot of times. And so a lot of that is just undoing some of the broken records that are just not serving you anymore. And so when I started reading about it and seeing it, and I found, this amazing woman named Marissa Peer, who was known as like the #1 therapist in Europe, and she was training. And so I was very fortunate to be personally trained by her. And, it's just enhanced my career. And so when I'm talking to people, I can look so much deeper into, my conversation with a lot of things versus, what I used to know. And it's funny because I give intake forms to people, and like one of the big things I always get is procrastination, like overthinking and procrastinating. When you're working with high performance people, procrastination, and and overthinking. And it's like, why, like over and over and over again, but you find that's just a coping mechanism. It's an emotional regulation that's just kind of disturbed because like we suffer a lot of times, especially people that are high performance, from perfectionism. And like, I have to make sure that I do it right. I do it great. I win. I do it the best that I can. And so somewhere in the back of their head, if I'm not prepared yet, I'm just not going to do it. And so it's our mind's way of sort of blocking you or stopping you or protecting you from going out there and failing. And so when, we kind of remove the perfectionism attitude, I'm not good enough. And so, like, the advice I give people too is like, remember when we said the learn it, live it, lead it, but don't wait till you're like a perfect person at it. Because, first of all, you never will be. But second of all, if you play that in your head, you're just never going to go for it. And so, I think with the hypnotherapy, it's enhanced my career so much. I'm talking to these like very young and even older, ambitious, goal driven entrepreneurs. Like, I want to get rid of that block.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how it's like, I try to think about my early years as an entrepreneur and the amount of impact I could have on somebody. And it was only based on the experience I had to that point. Right. So if you're an 8, then you can only really help someone be an 8. But when you get to be a 10 or a 15 or a 20, as continue to work on yourself and fill yourself up with new information and new ways of looking at things, then we can kind of help them enhance themselves to a 10 or a 15 or a 20. So tell me, and I know it's coming up on 10:30. If you have a couple extra minutes, this is really kind of, I'm so excited about talking about this. So to your point, like the high performers, and that's, I always tell people in our recruiting, I'm looking for the 5-star athlete. I'm looking for the person that could work anywhere, that could do anything. They're going to succeed on a high level at most companies I go to. But I want them to work here because they also work with other 5-star athletes. Now getting those athletes together, iron sharpens iron, right? And so I got to continue to work on myself in the meantime. But when it comes to high performers and that piece around, overthinking it in your sessions, how do you help someone get that? And you said you kind of remove things and put new things in. Do you have an example possibly to maybe help somebody? Because I see that a lot. High performers, they just overthink it and they don't really hit their full potential.
Sure. And a lot, again, it's like that's everyone. We all have that somewhere, somehow, some way. And yeah, in hypnotherapy, though, we slow the mind down and kind of just allow your brain to open up. And it's like a form of meditation. And so then I'll talk to your subconscious mind. But to answer it, a lot of it is just we don't know. Everybody's different. But it all boils down to sort of three things. Either I'm not good enough, I'm too different, or something's not available to me. So we talked about the not good enough. I'm too different. People put themselves in this bucket like, hey, I'm this 5-star whatever, but then they start comparing themselves. I'm too different from, I'm not tall enough, I'm not short enough, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 right? And or the last one, it's not available to me. And again, that's just a subconscious limiting belief. And I'll give you an example. Like, I'm not healthy. Health is available to everyone else, but it's not available to me because everyone in my family is not healthy. This is, someone thinking. Or money blocks. They only go so far because there's like, in my family, and again, some of these aren't even conscious. It's just, they think that maybe money, turns you into a different person or blah, blah. So they'll stop at a certain point because of this, all these like information that they think that they had or that was, given to them or interpreted at some point in their age. And so it's like going back in there and saying, well, where are your blocks? What beliefs are stopping you? And there's a list, like it can give you 100, 300, 1,000. You just start clicking them off. And then what you do is you look at that list of things that you're doing, that you're thinking is like, is that true? How would I rather feel? So if I'm showing up and like, I don't feel good about this. Well, okay, how would you rather feel? I'd rather feel excited. I want you to think about like a situation that of a person that you don't like, you're just butting heads with and it hurt you, in the situation. Okay. And visualize that. So you think about it, you feel the pain, you feel the anger. How would you rather feel? And go back, feel that. How would you, I'd rather feel great. I'd rather feel accountable. I'd rather feel good. I'd rather breathe and wake up early and blah, blah. Okay, now let's fast forward that 6 months from now and continue to feel that way. So a lot of it is the visualization. It goes back to exactly what you said, Ken, the quality of our thoughts and our visual pictures that we make in our head. That is what's going to make us or break us. And so that was just a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I'll tell you The mind is a very interesting thing, and I think in the last 5 years, I know as our peer group has changed and evolved, and our lives have changed. We're, a lot of us are parents now. It's very interesting how the core group of our partners in this opportunity are really interested in getting better,
Yeah.
really interested in leveling up so we can make a massive impact on the world. I love that.
I think it's the greatest thing ever. I love your podcast and your Clear channel, Ken Lear Clear. It's like really clever. I was thinking Julie Jedmonds. That doesn't sound right.
Well, Julie, I know it's just after 10:30. Any final thoughts today for anyone that could watch this? And thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, for sure. This is so fun. Thanks for having me. The world is your classroom. You know that every decision we make enhances us or drains us. We give ourselves power, we take our power away. You know, and so that's just part of life. And so, just keep telling yourself you're good enough.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much. And if you can hang tight because it's got to download and everything else, but thank you for jumping on today, everybody who jumped on live. Please follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and all these other places. You can find the Clear channel. Again, our goal is to help change the world one leader at a time. And thank you for jumping on. See you guys soon.
Bye.